So, the other day, the price of silver took a nosedive, a huge, dramatic crash. Now, on the surface, you might just chalk that up to another crazy day on the markets, right? But what if I told you it wasn't an accident at all? The source material we're looking at today lays out this absolutely fascinating theory that this crash was actually a calculated shot in a secret war for control of the world's money.
And that's the question that kicks this whole thing off. Yeah, markets are volatile. They go up, they go down. But our source says, hey, look closer. It's telling us to see this not as just random market noise, but as a deliberate message. So you gotta wonder, what was the message? And who was sending it?
And here's where it gets really wild. The theory is that this one event, this silver crash, is actually tied to something way, way bigger, a decades-long strategy to completely flip the global economic power structure on its head. Okay, so to really get this theory, we first need to understand the rules of the game. We're talking about the heavyweight championship fight for the world's #1 currency. So what even is a global reserve currency? Well, put simply, it's the world's go-to money. It's the default setting. It's the currency that countries use to buy and sell stuff from each other, and it's what they stash away in their national savings accounts. And right now, that currency is, overwhelmingly, the US dollar. But here is the absolutely crucial point. Being the reserve currency isn't just about money. It's about raw power. It gives a country this immense, almost invisible influence over the entire global economy. You get to set the terms, you can hit other countries with sanctions. It's a huge lever of power. And this chart really shows you just how dominant the US dollar is. I mean, look at that. Around 70% of all the money central banks are holding is in dollars. And then look over there. You see that tiny little sliver? That's China's currency, the yuan. According to our source, changing this picture is China's ultimate economic endgame. So let's talk about the challenger, because this isn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. The source we're looking at argues that China has been meticulously, patiently crafting a plan for years to get its currency to that top spot. And, this ambition isn't some big secret. It's been stated pretty openly. The source points to a speech all the way back in 2014 by China's leader Xi Jinping, where this goal was laid out crystal clear. It was basically a declaration of intent. We're going to build a currency that can rival the US dollar. This timeline really puts it into perspective. We're watching a long, slow-burn game unfold. The dollar has been the world standard since '71. But ever since that 2014 speech, you can see the pieces on the chessboard have been moving a lot faster, and the challenge is becoming way more direct. But how do you actually do it? How do you become the world's reserve currency? Well, it doesn't just happen by accident. According to our source, there's a recipe, a sort of checklist of essential ingredients you have to have. And here they are. The source boils it down to these 4 pillars of national power. You need a massive economy, for sure. You need a political system that the rest of the world sees as stable. You need a military that can protect your trade routes and your interests globally. And you need to be leading the pack in the technologies that are going to define the future. Now, looking at this scorecard from the source, you can really see this high-stakes competition playing out. The US is the established leader in a lot of these areas, no doubt. But look at China's column. They're now #1 in global trade, their military is expanding at a dizzying pace, and they are closing the gap fast in critical tech like AI. They are systematically building up every single one of these pillars. Okay, so we've got the background. A huge global power struggle, a decades-long plan. But let's circle all the way back to our original mystery. How on earth does a crash in the price of silver fit into all of this? This, my friends, is where the theory gets really interesting. It seems like a total contradiction, doesn't it? I mean, we live in an age of digital everything. Crypto, online banking, you name it. So why would a plan for the future of money involve something as ancient as silver? The whole theory really hinges on this one key distinction. See, the US dollar has what you'd call extrinsic value. The paper itself is worthless, right? Its value comes from our faith, our collective trust, and the stability of the US government that backs it. In contrast, China's strategy, according to the source, is to champion intrinsic value, money that's backed by something real, something physical, like gold or silver. And that is the core of the entire alleged strategy. The goal is to chip away at the world's faith in this paper dollar system by reminding everyone that value can also be tied to tangible physical stuff that you can actually hold in your hand. Assets that, by the way, China has been quietly stockpiling for years. And to prove this point, the source we're examining claims a massive lever was pulled. It suggests that a huge sum of money, around $200 million, was used not to make a profit, but to deliberately slam the silver market and trigger that crash we saw. This slide right here gets to the motive. The crash wasn't really about silver at all. It was a demonstration, a show of force. It was a way to prove that the West's complex paper markets are fragile, that they can be manipulated, shaking the very confidence that they're built on. It was a warning shot. So, where does all this lead? I mean, if this theory has even a shred of truth to it, we could be watching the very first moves in a fundamental reshaping of the entire global financial system. So let's just recap the main takeaways from this theory. First, the dollar's reign as the undisputed king is being actively challenged. Second, China is methodically executing a long-term plan to push the yuan to the top. Third, a key part of that plan might be to shift the world's focus away from paper currencies and back towards physical assets. And finally, things we see as just random market chaos could in fact be carefully planned moves in this quiet economic war. Ultimately, it all boils down to this, doesn't it? Every form of money is based on trust. It's a promise. And our source frames this entire global conflict around one single question. As the world keeps changing, whose promise, whose guarantee is everyone going to trust more? And that leaves us with the final massive question. For the last half-century or so, the rules of money have been pretty clear. But now, as new powers rise and new strategies come into play, the future of money itself is up for grabs. And it is anything but clear who's going to come out on top.